wait for it to totally bomb.
That's a term for a short gay man.
Once you go warthog, you never go back. Warren Buffett showed up by himself with a ukulele.
We've never done this, Michael, but this is a bonus segment because we have our segment producer here.
What do you call it? Buckle up after hours?
Yeah, for
Buckle
Patreon.
up, buckle off?
This would be for
Buckle
Patreon
down.
because we had a few questions we didn't get to.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
That's a cool little... Yeah.
I'll tell you what I thought.
Yeah.
How are my levels? How are my levels? When you said
Still the same.
buckle up, I was expecting some heavy therapy type stuff where it's like a life in the arts. Buckle up. I wasn't sure if
Well,
that
it's a little
inspired it.
tongue in cheek. We're not really doing anything too intense here.
Right.
Yeah. But we wanted. We didn't really get. We kind of hit the mark. We didn't really get to like the.
Ami had to pee.
The celebrity talk. Yeah.
There's more than that.
We want to talk about some misconceptions about celebrities, and I also had some questions about from all the world-class performers you've spoken to. Like, do you have any key takeaways of like, here's kind of what they all have in common, and like if you could apply any sort of discipline or characteristics to like your own career or your own self.
So part one, misconceptions that people have about celebrities having had so much interaction with them on a professional level and in kind of a personal level. And part two, just so we can...
Just like if there are any takeaways from like having spent time with all these world-class performers.
Right.
creatives.
Is there anything to take for yourself from them? Misconceptions.
Well, I'll answer part two first. I mean, one thing you realize is celebrities, whatever the art form they work in, or if they're just famous for being famous, change the energy in a room.
Mm-hmm.
If George Clooney walked in here, or if whoever, Anne Hathaway walked in here, or Jamie Foxx, whoever it is, the energy in the room would change and you would feel it. And when they left the room, one guest told me he felt like it's like after you spend time with the royals, you kind of feel like you need to floss, where it's just like that energy just gets wet. It's total. They change the energy in the room.
That's true.
Wow.
That's interesting. I felt that.
And you find yourself
Remember VCon?
speaking weirdly.
Yeah.
You find yourself speaking weirdly, and just the energy field changes, and you're like, I don't get it. They're just human beings, which is true. But some of them.
Not to interrupt, we were at the Gary V VCon conference, and there was a couple of A-listers there: Pharrell, Logan Paul, and like other people.
Deepak Chopra.
And yes, but also when Snoop Dogg was coming, before he was in the room with us,
You feel
people
it.
were like, I think it's everybody else changes.
Yeah.
It hits
And they don't, but it's just like this whole like, he's in the building, Snoop Dogg's. There's something that happens where people just, it's like a herd.
And it has to do with fame for
Yeah.
sure.
I think it's a part of the tribal thing where you're like,
The alpha
you
has
become
arrived.
like canines. Like, yeah, our leader. We all know this person. He's here. Yeah, we all know him.
But it's a fame
We
thing.
all
If
know him.
you guys were on television, millions of people have seen you for all these years, and you came in flanked by all these people, and you pulled up in an SUV, and there were cameras, it would just change the energy.
But I think Michael's saying it's like it goes back to like a deep evolutionary part of our biology where when an alpha, someone who is of such status, shows up, our attention is magnetic. We all just are drawn to it because there is something to be gained to be around a person of such status.
It hits for me at least. It hits a pretty ugly nerve in me where I'm like, I want to like throw people out of the way to get close to them. Like there's it enacts something in me.
Right.
I guess maybe you're around it so much you don't feel it anymore. Or
I
you
don't get that.
you
But if
tend
I'm in
to.
front of an athlete or in front of an actor or a writer I admire, on the inside you turn into like a 10-year-old kid. What I'm often curious about is why we put professional pretenders on a pedestal of all the things.
Right.
Why, if Matthew McConaughey walks into a room, we're like, whoa. Is it, and maybe it has to do with something primal too, which is that we value storytellers. That like if everything else in the world went to crap, these people would have a job because they'd get up on a rock and they would tell a story and we'd all be riveted.
You know what I think of sometimes? In the 1800s, Brad Pitt's great-great-great-grandfather, there was someone who was the best-looking guy in the world. working a shitty job with nothing to do because acting wasn't a thing. Like there was someone who looked like Brad Pitt
was.
alive,
But it was always a
who
thing.
was just coal mining.
No, he was on stage
he was-
at the theater doing Shakespeare.
No, but he wasn't.
In the
not,
amphitheater,
not
Mike.
not in the American West. Like I mean, so there was someone somewhere who was movie star, handsome and charismatic,
Yeah.
just working at a bar.
Yeah,
you know what I'm
sure.
saying? Because
Yes.
there was no industry. But
And there still is, by the way, who just never made that.
Yeah.
Like Ami said, we just don't hear those stories because that
Right,
person didn't
right.
make it.
But maybe it's just the perception of status, because not just the professional and professional pretenders, as you call
Yeah.
them, politicians, anyone of high status. You can manufacture it. Like I've watched prank videos on YouTube of someone. I'm going to pretend to be somebody, and you manufacture it. You get the car, you get the paparazzi, and they're all fake, and you're pranking like a crowd, and everyone just starts following it.
But there's something.
Who is it?
There's
Who is that
something
person?
particularly about entertainment because if Mark Zuckerberg walked down the street of New York City, or if
You don't think that would get
Unless-
like a? Well, that's Mark.
it's the I, th- I
It
think it's, I
might,
think it's the
but-
characters that we hold dear in our hearts. Also, when you see George Clooney, you think
the characters,
the character. I mean, for me, George Clooney doesn't really hit any mark, but Tom Hanks would. If I
Right.
saw him, I'd be like, I love Forrest Gump. I love you. Teach me how to live.
And I guess with athletes, some of them they seem literally larger than life. Like
Right.
you meet an athlete and you're like,
because they're so tall.
wow, yeah, because they're in amazing shape and
Right.
you're like, oh my,
You know
Yeah,
what? Because we're seeing their avatars on TV constantly, and it's funny when you see them in person. You're like, it's a glitch in your mind. This doesn't
Right.
compute. They're
You
not
see
supposed
them-
to have like sweat the way I see it. Like
It's crazy seeing them what I call out in the wild. Like you see them at a coffee shop, you're like, whoa.
I have a weird
Yeah.
theory. Like someone like who's played the president? Who's someone who's played an American president?
Harrison Ford.
Harrison Ford.
off my
Harrison
plane.
Ford, for a part of Harrison Ford's life, if you just chopped it up, he basically was the president for a 20-minute stretch.
Right.
So like when he walks into the room, I wonder if like he carries with him that energy of like, I know what it's like for people to look at me like I'm the president of the United
I guess
States.
how was he as a president in that movie?
He was
He was the
excellent.
best.
Saved the damn
he
day.
saved it, yeah.
Funny as that
Those
reminds
damn
me,
Russians.
when you, Lori, was on the show,
Yeah.
I said to him, you played House all these years. Do you retain and he did this movie Tomorrowland with Clooney, and I said, did you guys ever talk shop? Because George Clooney, ER,
yeah.
Dr. Ross, you were Dr.
Apparently, she
House.
ingested lighter fluid and tried to fly her kidneys on fire. She was suicidal. How did I know that? Because I saw a scar in her lower left tissue next to the belly button. You channel my inner house.
Can you channel that? Like, did you and Clooney talk shop? And he said, I have a goldfish's memory. I retain things for however long, and then it's just gone. And Clooney has a great memory when it comes to this stuff. And he tried to talk shop, and he said, there is nothing more devastating as a man than to look up and see George Clooney looking at you, looking into your eyes, wanting. You know, it's like,
Only a Brit. Only a British guy
Wanting.
could
An Oxford educated.
Really? Well,
To answer, there was a second part of the question: misconceptions.
into the sorry.
The second part of the question, Your Honor, misconceptions was this is an obvious one: is that famous people have their lives together, which they absolutely don't, and there's something which comes to mind, which is the interviewer David Rubenstein, whose show's on Bloomberg. I don't know why I'm plugging his show, no free pub, but he interviewed a lot of leaders, and he interviewed Oprah, and she said, in her like decades interviewing people, one thing which stuck out was afterwards, whether it was someone new to the industry or someone who's been famous for a while. She said Barack Obama, people will turn to her afterwards and say, was that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Was I okay? Yeah. And even the biggest people with probably very healthy egos want to know, did you see me?
Mm-hmm.
Did I say anything that mattered? Am I worth anything to you? And so she said it started getting her to approach these interviews in such a way where she was listening to them with the intention of, you matter, your being here matters, the things you're saying matter to me, because even the biggest people want to know, like, was that okay? Which is, you would think people are so self-assured, they're so smooth, but they're not. They often won't. Was that all right? I don't know.
Do you think Oprah said to your friend afterwards, was that okay? Was she a guest on his show when she said this, divulged this?
Yes, yes.
Did he ask?
So did she say to him afterwards?
No, because
Was I
she's
okay?
No, she definitely didn't, because she's Oprah. She's supernatural.
Everyone needs assurances except for Oprah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh,
She's
Oprah's
the-
next. She's just sort of a ray of
And
inspiration.
how do you deal with the starstruck?
And then the other
feeling
thing is,
that-
like the first segment I ever produced at Colbert was the football player Brandon Marshall, who started a mental health awareness nonprofit called Project 375, and I remember on the phone asking him, why do you think there's so much stigma around mental health? And this was in 2016. And he's like, people are pushing all the wrong stuff. He's like, you go on social media. And again, by now, what I'm about to say is not by any means revolutionary, but it was interesting hearing it from this pro football player. He's like, people only put their good parts out there. They don't want to reveal that they have weaknesses. He's like, most people, as famous as they are, as successful as they are, have plenty of bad days. They wake up, their breath smells terrible like everyone else. He said, I feel like we're selling people the wrong stuff. And I was like, whoa. And this is the same guy who told me on the same call, football is my platform, not my purpose. I was like, football's not your purpose. You're like a star receiver in the NFL. What else could be your purpose? And he's like, it's not. It's my microphone. My purpose is to raise awareness about mental health in the world. And I just thought, oh my God, this conversation was so much bigger than what I thought it would be. But when he said we're selling the wrong stuff, I think the perception is people, because they're famous, have their lives together, but they're not. They're figuring stuff out the same way everyone is. And that's, again, not an earth-shattering reveal here that celebrities, in some ways, they're not like us at all, but in other ways, it's the same insecurities and all that.
There's 2 points that are like kind of opposing things here of the same coin. It's like, on the one hand, they change the room. On the other hand, they're the same as us. And it's a funny thing to figure. And quickly, like, how do you reconcile within yourself to maintain professionalism? The giddiness, is it just like you could get used to it, exposure therapy? You're just like in it enough?
No, it's the knowledge that I have to get to work and I have things to get done with them and I have priorities. So if there's that moment of, oh my God, I'm on the phone with Bruce Springsteen or Meryl Streep or Serena Williams or whatever, very quickly you think, I have 30 minutes here. I have a lot of things to ask. We better dive in. And so sometimes it's so nice to meet you. I'm a huge fan of your work. I'm just going to dive right in. So I thought it would be fun if you and Stephen, blah, blah, blah. What did you think of? Have you seen blah, blah? And then instantly you're in conversation with someone. And I almost think of it like you're sitting in a library with someone who has a project that's due in a few days and let's collaborate together. And do you have anything you think would be fun? And I can give my honest opinion and say, that's interesting. I think Stephen might be interested in this, or I thought it would be really cool if whatever.
Are there any like do's and don'ts for talking to super famous people? Like I was surprised where you said I'm a big fan. I would think you wouldn't say that to somebody.
Well, sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. But I think a don't is I wouldn't say something negative about their project. It's like they've just birthed this child and you don't want to say your kid's really ugly or yikes. That's what you just gave birth to. Maybe years later you could ask about something they learned from experience.
You don't think it's a reveal, like saying, oh, by the way, I'm like, there's like an eye roll. Thank you. Like, do you feel relieved by the idea that you're immediately past in their mind? Like you're there for a reason and it's work and it's professional. So therefore you're already on the side of the curtain. That's nice in the sense that, like, when you're walking through the hallway with somebody, escorting them through set or something like that, there's all these people who like want a picture, want this and that, and you don't have to play that game.
Right.
And that's nice, right?
I don't think in my life I've ever on the phone said, I'm a big fan. I might say, by the way, I'd say I have a lot of questions that I want to ask you. Before we get to them, I just want to say thank you so much for your work. It has provided me with so many laughs. So before we get started, I just want to say, you're the man. That sort of thing.
Do you ever ask for selfies? Have you ever asked a celebrity
for a photo? For sure. It's like a memento, and you have to read the room.
What's the proper way to ask for a selfie with an A-lister?
Well, some people who I think are really savvy the celebrity will say, you know what, why don't we get a picture? And that to me seems like a whole nother level of kindness where
but the celebrity will offer it.
Because they could read the emotional energy and they don't want to make you. And then, of course, to play it cool, you could be like, you know what, not today. I don't. But
what do you do if you're seeing the person, you want the memento, they're not doing that, the celebrity's not giving you that? What does somebody do that they don't want to come across as fanboy, fangirl, and like the eye roll or just like a favor? What's the move? What's the line? Do we know?
If you're getting the energy that they don't want to take a picture.
But you know it's worth getting it.
Most of the time, I would say you don't ask for a picture. Other times you could say, I'm really sorry to bug you for this, but this has been such a great experience. It would be such a great memento to preserve this memory. If we could get a quick picture, would you mind?
Right. Or...
they'd be like, oh, yeah. By the way,
thank you so much for being here. I really, really had a good time. You asked to take the
One of the cooler things about working for these shows is our office is above the Ed Sullivan Theater, and so you'll be sitting at your desk and, like, let's say let's say you guys were on the show that day and there's tons of paparazzi, which there are for big stars. Yeah. You'll be sitting at your desk just like, checking email or reading an article or something, and all of a sudden you'll hear a swarm of people, Ami, Mike, I'm Ami. And you're like, I guess the buckle up people have arrived, and it's just, and then like you'll get a text from an intern or like someone will be like, Michael and Ami have arrived? Oh, have they? Really? Where it's Meryl, quick, Meryl.
One day. Mike and Ami.
But
Buckle Up is on site. Buckle Up. The helipad has dropped up. Michael's hanging by his beard. Can someone untangle the beard? Can someone untangle the beard from the propellers, please? We have a propeller situation.
It's so funny. And the aliases are great. Like I think another mark of a big celebrity is small entourages. Not always.
As opposed to big entourages?
The big fish heavy hitters will show up with like a person or two. And then the sort of nouveau riche will show up with 19 people where it's just like... Yeah, you're nothing. Tom Hanks will roll up solo, and then like a publicist will show up like later, but he's just cool on his own, being like, "Hey guys, whatever." And then someone else. I remember Charlie Rose. This person asked for her car to be booked under an alias, and it's like, darling, nobody knows you by your actual name. And then Warren Buffett showed up by himself with a ukulele. It's like,
why did he have he plays the
ukulele? Plays the ukulele.
That's a term for a short gay man.
No, but it's really like,
this is Jorge. This is Jorge.
No, but like big entourages. Sometimes a big,
This is ukulele.
I'll give you a little thing you can pay attention to watching late night shows. The bigger the star, the longer it takes for the ass to hit the seat. When an academic comes out or a politician, beeline to the chair, sit down like a little schoolboy or a schoolgirl.
They take
when Jamie Foxx comes on, 4 minutes and change before that ass hits the seat. He puts it down, he fake. He's like, "What's up, guys?" He says, "What's up" to the band. He does exactly. They're dancing.
Ready for it.
They're taking in the audience, the whole thing.
I gotta ask this.
They sit down and we're just like, we gotta wrap. We're done.
All right, final question.
I gotta ask this. Yes. He says, "We'll be right back." The lights go off. He turns to the guest. What are they talking about? When they cut to commercial and they're chatting, what are they chatting about?
You asked too many questions. I cannot tell you. Okay. No, it's your basic kibitz.
Yeah.
It's your basic kibitz. When we come back, I'll ask you a little bit about being sponsored by Dunkin' Donuts. It's just, or, personal stuff that they wouldn't like. How's your wife and kids? Or,
And it's still live when the commercials go. Just we're not watching, but like the audience is there, so there's in between stuff like for the audience, or right?
The band's playing. The band is playing, and
they like zoom out.
You're talking about this.
I'll tell you a secret about our show, which is we tape it as in one fell swoop, and those breaks are artificial. We'll tape the whole conversation, and then afterwards there'll be we have to take a quick break, and then we splice them in afterwards. Other hosts, I think, divide it up where they'll know we would have tape the first 10 minutes of the show, and it's like, we have to take a quick break, but we'll be right back. Stephen thinks that breaks up the flow of conversation.
And last geeky question, does the segment producer prep the cards?
Yeah. That's the outline that I write, for sure. And that's, I go into his office and I present it to him in the middle of the day. Mm-hmm. He tweaks it, makes it smarter, funnier.
Punches it up. Yeah.
I fix it up. Mm-hmm. I bring it back to him. Then, when the guest arrives, I run through it with you guys in the green room and be like, this is one area. Remember you told me this great story on the phone. You're kind of priming them for their appearance. Sometimes you'll be able to update the card then. Let's say something happened that breaking news and you want to ask them, Tony Sirico just died. I'm just curious. Are you guys big Sopranos fans? And if there's a lot there, then I'm at the desk with Colbert during the commercial break before you guys come out. And I could say, I just was in the green room. Once you say, hi, nice to meet you, why don't you just go, I understand you guys are big Tony Sirico fans. They have this amazing story of actually getting Tony Sirico on the podcast at a bar in New Jersey. So that's your chance for almost like last minute stuff. Or you can cross things off the list. So when Garth Brooks was on the show, we talked about what it's like being a liberal in a pretty conservative country music scene. And he had interesting things to say and was quite comfortable talking about it on the phone. And then when we got to the green room and we're running through the topics, he goes, I'd rather stay away from that area. So I didn't...
He's like, you know what? I got friends in low places.
So we crossed it out. And at the desk, I said to Colbert, you could ask him about this. He seemed a little less interested in talking about it. And so he steered away from it. And then...
thank you, Neil.
Right. No, so...
I picture him doing that a lot. Thank you, Neil. You know, he's
No,
good.
he's the best. It's great. I once left my phone. You know, I was sitting in his office, and I guess my phone slipped out of my pocket. And the rest of the day, I can't find my phone. I thought, I don't know, maybe it's in his office. So I go to his assistant's office, and I was like, did I have to leave my phone in Stephen's office? And she goes, yeah, here it is. He has a message for you. And I was like, what? And like, I checked my notes. I checked my email, my text. Like, I didn't quite understand what she was talking about, but there are other things I had to do. And so I go about my day, and then I'm waiting in this backstage area before I'm going to go out to the desk to do that final briefing on the guest. And I check my photos, and he had left me a video, just a close up on his face on my phone, which just said, "You leave it again, I'm keeping it." And I started laughing. And then I get to the desk, and I'm getting ready to run through the material with him. And the first thing he says is, "Did you get my video?" I was like, oh my God, I just saw it like 15 minutes ago. I've watched it 7 times already. It was great. So, yeah, he's...
All right, we're going to air that on the episode.
Wait, can I ask 2 more questions?
Yes.
Very quick. Does he get a new suit every night?
No.
Does he get to keep the suits he wears?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Stylist?
We have a stylist at the show who suggests outfits for him.
Is he a secret Muslim?
Who are we sponsored by on this show, by the way? Who's the...
What's that?
Who is the...
Great value.
Charlie Rose was Ralph
Turning Point
Lauren.
USA, Daily Wire Plus.
The following is brought to you by Untuck It. I noticed that some of your episodes, everyone was wearing hats. I was like, do I need to wear a hat? I was like, one of your guests had a beanie.
Yeah.
Jeremy had the hat. I was like, do I need headwear for this show?
Not with that head of hair.
Yeah, beautiful. Just
Thank you.
beautiful.
Show it off.
All right, that's the end of the bonus segment. I'm glad we did that because that was fun.
Yeah, that was fun.
It was fun. Wait, I have a question for you guys, if you don't
Yes.
mind my asking.
Sure.
You've been doing this podcast for a couple months now? How long?
This is the 36th episode. We've been doing it about once a week, so
36 weeks.
And were you guys doing...
We started September.
Nice.
Were you
Nice.
guys doing
Almost.
podcasts before you did this podcast together?
no.
No.
No. And so how is this experience compared to what you had envisioned? The rapport is very smooth.
We had a fight a couple of weeks ago. Not a fight, but we had a
Relax. It wasn't a fight.
no, not a fight, but we
I told you not to fucking bring it up.
no, we had to.
You
Go ahead.
first.
Go ahead.
Me?
Yeah.
I'm pretty happy with it. I'm pretty proud of it, in the sense that it's, yeah, we don't prepare too much, but it seems to reflect our natural rapport pretty well. Which I thought, it's not without its hiccups. We had to work on a little bit of like the interrupting factor, and natural conversation does work, but you have to be a little conscious of letting people's sentences finish. So it had its things to smooth out, but I've been pretty happy with how fluid and natural and fun it feels to do.
Yeah. I listen to a ton of podcasts, and I've been listening for like a very long time. So I'm like pretty like serious about like the quality of the podcast. So like I think we still have a long way to go until like you said, like the quality is like where I like envisioned it, like where we're like a little bit more focused on like what this podcast is for and all that. But it's been fun, and it's been like an amazing creative practice and exercise to put one of these out once a week.
And what would you... Sorry, you were about to say something.
No, go ahead.
What would you say are the different angles at which you guys each come at an interview? Because you said we complement each other nicely.
I think so.
Yeah,
What do
no,
you
I think so. I think we're especially good with guests. I especially have enjoyed the guests so far.
That's been more recent, where we've had consistent. You're like our third guest in a row, and that's been fun. For a while, it was just us, which was. I'm most happy with the fact that we're doing it, and it's not theoretical. That's the most important fundamental thing to me. Forget how good it is, how good it can get. We have a podcast.
Exactly.
It exists. It's not that many people following yet. I'm trying to feed from other places where I have some following to get over here, but it's taking its time, and I'm being very patient with it. But as long as I'm seeing clips circulating, things happening, activity, I'm set. That meets a threshold for me of, wow, I have a podcast.
Well, because you're doing what that music teacher of yours said, which is just right.
So it's shit right now. I get it, Neil.
It's
I get
not.
what you're saying. No, but I'm happy. Like, that is enough for me right now. The fact that it exists, and it's a great outlet for, the practice of conversation, the practice of interview. I am surprised with how little we prepare and how smooth certain episodes go. It's seemingly because we don't really prepare. So there's the organic thing is not something pulled over your head. We just actually sit down and have conversations.
Yeah,
And I don't know how we
I'd
do
probably
that.
prepare mentally more. I think I come in with a couple of topics. Like I came in with a couple of areas I wanted to ask you about.
I could tell you read those biographies of me. There are many, and Weber just really.
I like the unauthorized ones the best.
Those are really good. What's been the hardest part? Because there's always that stuff where you're like, this seemed easier when I was watching it, but doing it is very difficult. Because you're both good, I will say, at what is a host, in some regards, a traffic cop, where you're like, wait. Come on in.
Conduit
And you guys are both good at driving and sharing the steering wheel.
Yeah, I think that comes naturally. The hardest part, I think it's like what Ira Glass talks about this sometimes, where like when you're just starting out, you have a voice and you can contribute something, and then you actually make the thing, and you're like, this isn't a masterpiece. Like we're putting it out, and it's like we're putting it out, and I'm really glad it's out there and people like it, but it's not like the thing yet that I think like I like expect it to be. So I think it's hard to have something out there where like my friends listen and they're like, you interrupt. What is this thing even? Like, how come you're asking these questions all over the place? And I'm like, we're figuring it out. Like, I don't.
Everyone I
stand by
talk to
every
says
single
I'm
moment.
hilarious.
I was going to say, what's the most constructive piece of criticism you've gotten? Or is it just like, this is great?
The most constructive piece I've gotten is from Michael himself, which is like, we need to figure out like, how to split the balance between it being loose and conversational with also having some structure and not being too interrupty. That's but not even that. Yeah. Not even that. I would say, for me, the hardest part to answer that question is, thankfully, it's not my first rodeo. I've been in several bands, and I'm still in one, and know the process of being patient as things take time and putting in the time and developing the craft before seeing a reaction from people, and doing content on my own of comedy stuff online. Like I didn't have my first video that did well until like the 70th or 100th video. Like I know that process, but it becomes hard to assess the signals of people reacting to it. Should you do this? Should you do that? Or should you just continue? Is it a matter of time and consistency, doing the reps, and then you're going to be in shape? Because when you're working out, you're like, I'm not seeing results yet. So maybe you're doing the wrong workout, or maybe you just haven't worked out enough. So that's always hard to know. Like, could you be doing more to build and get more reach? Is it the quality? And you can make yourself crazy with that.
Right.
And I think the only thing you can really do is keep going, because as you keep going, quality will inevitably improve because you're doing it more. So all those questions get answered.
Yeah.
Where the more you do it, so that's always a question for any artist or any creative endeavor. Like, it's like, do 1,000 ways of doing the same thing. You're crazy as a scientist if you do the same thing over and over again. You get the same result.
Yeah.
Maybe you have to change something, or no, maybe you have to keep doing it
And the 1,001st time you'll discover what it is.
I think at episode 100 we'll have a better idea of like, okay, we have to either like adapt this thing and adjust it, or like we're heading in the right direction, just keep going. But like we've only done 36,
And
sure.
it's also
There's an
production,
element of
lighting, cameras. That's the next obvious thing is like, we didn't want to go all in right away without knowing what we were doing. So you want to build the foundation first, and then it's like the gradual improvements. A better camera, better lighting, better set. There's a blank blue wall behind you that drives us crazy.
Right.
Things like that. Like how to elevate it and add like spices to it to flavor it.
And also with this stuff like changing the YouTube thumbnail doesn't mean it's a bad episode. It means the YouTube thumbnail isn't good. Like little things like that's also an area where like you don't quite know.
When you say the thumbnail, you mean
the
little box that you see that you click on.
Gotcha.
An episode could be great and no one listens because like we didn't design it right, and it could be mediocre and we get 10 times the amount of listens.
Are more people listening or watching, or can you only watch on YouTube?
Well,
Watch on YouTube and Spotify
And
too.
Spotify.
I don't where people are consuming it. Michael knows the metrics a little bit more.
More people listen than watch the full episode, but really what this is like objectively is we make reels and TikToks from the hour and a half. We'll cut it up into minute-long things.
I'm going to be on TikTok?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Wow. TikTok is I think it's the most
Can you
fun.
say ni hao?
Your
can't.
information is going to China.
TikTok is by far, I think, the most fun of social media.
We love it.
Yeah.
Twitter
TikTok hates us.
Twitter is so people are so angry at each other. Instagram is very Instagram is very
I
aspirational.
deleted Twitter again. Yeah,
do this all
it's
the
not
time.
worth it. It's not worth it.
You're gonna have a booty call and you go back to it. He's like his ex that he keeps hooking up with his Twitter.
My TikTok experience, again, continuing in the tradition today of dropping unfashionable names, but Will Smith's TikTok, fantastically fun.
Oh, it is.
So much fun.
The slapping is amazing. But
That would be
anyway,
amazing if he just did like the next 100 videos with him slapping things.
it's
Wait,
a thing. It's a
if I'm here, I have to ask you. I know nothing, virtually nothing about Gary Vee. Who is he? Why do people quote him so much?
Here's another
And how did you get involved with the man and become the world's #1 Gary Vee impersonator?
Don't say number 2.
I
dick
love
face.
the segment that he's producing on the fly right now. That Neil's producing on the fly.
No, I'm serious. I know people are like,
no,
oh, have
this
you
whole-
read
this
Gary
whole
Vee?
thing.
Well, and then we get into Tim
Gary-
Ferriss and all these people who I don't know
Gary
enough about.
Vee is not one of the first, but an internet superstar who has had several different careers over the years. Where he started in the wine business, actually working in his family's wine store.
He's a New Jersey guy,
He's
isn't
a
he?
New Jersey guy, immigrant from Belarus, Jewish.
Jets fan.
And he was the first person to really take like YouTube and Twitter and these social media platforms very seriously as ways to grow and scale business.
So he was a marketer?
Yeah, he created a show called Wine Library. This is early days, way back in the day, to start making content to help grow his father's wine business from like a $3 million business to a $60 million business.
He owned the
grew
wine
that.
business.
He owned.
He was a part owner of the wine business.
It was his
No, his
family.
father,
It
his
was his
family owned.
family's,
Family
yeah,
owned.
yeah, yeah.
After he grew his family's business, he went on to take some of the money he made from that. And I think he was an early investor in like Facebook and Twitter
Oh,
and
wow.
those kinds of things. So he was successful at that and predicted those trends as being very relevant. So he's had a very good track record at predicting like when a lot of people like traditional ad space where it's like this stuff is not like Twitter is nonsense and YouTube is cat videos. So he was early to that.
Did he
Then
invest
started-
enough in those things to make a fortune
I think
from
he did.
Facebook and Twitter
I think
and all
so.
those?
I don't know his economics as well.
Not billions, but I think tens of millions of dollars.
I don't even
poor
know the
him,
actual
yeah.
numbers. But then he started
Fine.
VaynerX. He started Vayner Media, which is like an ad agency.
Yeah.
So he runs an ad agency, and out of all of his experience with that success, he started making a lot of online content in which he gives advice about how to grow business and use these social media platforms.
Gotcha.
A lot of just like free advice, hustle culture, win, losers, a positive, like a lot of that like early days, like stop fucking complaining and do that.
Do it, yeah.
Right? And then he did a lot of keynote stuff on that circuit, going to like marketing conferences and saying everything that guy just said is bullshit. And he had, and
Oh, wow.
because like they were all legacy players, and he was like doing it
This
a different
new-
way. And he would go on Twitter and DM tons of clients and respond to everybody and grew his Twitter following. So he's grown on all these platforms, and now he gives away a lot of that advice for free. And he's got a big personality. So I saw that as an opportunity. And it wasn't like my intention, like I'm gonna be the Gary Vee impersonator on TikTok. I just did one impression or 2 videos or something like that.
When?
And those were like my first early.
You did that
viral-
when?
February of 2020.
February of 2020.
Yeah, I posted like a TikTok after.
And did you tweet at him? How did it make its way to him?
Because TikTok has an amazing algorithm that allows even the most obscure and unknown people to go viral organically. If a video does well organically, it just explodes. And he's become
So
ubiquitous online over the years. I did this video on TikTok. I decided in 2020 as like my resolution, like I'm gonna like start using TikTok properly as my one social media place where I'll like be consistent. Let's see how that works. Consistency. Started posting just some music bits, some impression bits, some comedy. And then one day I'm sitting in my car and I post, I'm just so sick of fucking 40-year-olds complaining that they're not killing it. Right? Like if you want to win, fucking move to Louisiana and start a fucking peanut butter brand. Right? Like peanut butter. That video went viral.
When we say viral, what are we talking?
In the millions of views, but within a
Wow.
few days, it got to like 500,000 views and was shared by Barstool Sports on Instagram.
Forget it, yeah.
Barstool Sports, who I didn't even really know. Somebody reached out on TikTok, says, "Are you the owner of this video? Can you give it with us? We'd like to feature it on our page." And they wrote, "This guy is literally Gary Vee." He commented on that video.
Gary Vee did?
Yeah, because Barstool has that reach and
Yeah,
got to
yeah, of
him.
course. Wow,
but then it
but-
was like 2 years later that I was on the main stage at VCon next to Gary Vee.
And what's the quick story of how that came about?
Because somebody reached out to me from Fuck Jerry, which is another like big
Yeah.
Instagram account. They were like, have some advice for you. Or someone who used to work at Fuck Jerry was like, I have some advice for you if you want it. And I said, sure. It's like, the Gary Vee shit's hilarious, dude. Lean into it. Because I was ready to be like, oh, one went viral here. Let me show you what else I can. I was ready to do a bunch of other things.
Got it. Go deep rather
but
than...
I played my hit song and did tons of Gary Vee stuff, and it kept resonating. And then I did other things too. And I was able to grow an audience on TikTok to like...
And ultimately, you hear from Gary Vee or someone at his show, at his team.
It's like a gradual thing. I start tagging his team and tagging all the people around him in my videos and himself. And every once in a while, he'll drop a comment. Ha, 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 this is hilarious. He'll duet and react to a video. Then someone from his team DMs about potentially collabing. And then the VCon conference gets announced. So then I start talking to other members of his team and coordinators, and we eventually make it all happen.
And so the first time you spoke in person to or on the phone with
Michael, you don't use that.
Gary. Sorry, I'm just curious about it.
Yes.
Gary Vee was at VCon,
The first time we met in person was at VCon. Yeah.
and meeting him in
We
person.
DM'd once before.
Meeting
he
him in
dropped a
person.
DM like, so proud of you, brother. Hugs and kisses, something like that.
And meeting
XOXO.
meeting him in
gonna ask.
person.
Hugs and kisses,
Did you
yes.
get any good new hooks or make any tweaks to your impression? Because you thought, wow, now that I see him in person, this is kind of different.
So it's funny what you said about celebrity and how they changed the room and stuff. Gary is the one guy, I think he's so exposed on social media and so out there front and center. He really wasn't all that different.
Wasn't that
in
different?
person.
Yeah.
And in a good way. It wasn't like he's over the top, but it felt like I knew him. I was like, hey, Gary. And maybe because I was really supposed to be there and I was on the right side. I wasn't an attendee at the conference. I was
Right.
part of the
You were there
conference.
for a reason.
So I felt like we were collaborating, which we were. I didn't have the whole like. I mean, it was a big deal, but I wasn't. He really felt. I felt appropriately.
And
placed.
what was the first? What was that initial interaction?
The first reaction was a real. I'll let Michael finish the yawn. The first reaction, Michael wasn't there yet. Michael came with me.
Weber, how many times have you heard these stories?
I was there.
Oh, you were there.
Yeah. He got me a backstage pass to
As my
VCon.
producer.
Oh, you
Co-host.
got to listen to the episode where we go through the whole story.
Yeah,
It's
we have.
crazy.
Oh,
There's
wow.
a whole
Yeah,
episode
yeah.
on recapping.
Wait, you guys have a podcast? so you get to get.
I get that, and he's in a.
Is
big
he flanked by
So I'm it's
personnel?
But what my big reveal the next day, opening the conference, was a surprise. Like no one had to know. But when I got to VCon, even just like this, I was getting recognized, and I was trying to just keep a low profile because
Oh, wow.
away. I'm like, I'm just here. I wasn't doing the impression. But at the big meet and greet, when there's all these people like trying to like get pictures when he first shows up. There's a big like meet and greet party, and I'm documenting the whole thing. I have a videographer with me, and I see him.
Shlomo, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I see him in the corner, like doing his thing, and then he starts like walking, and he changes the energy. You know, there's like a pool around him of people. They're all moving a certain way, so people are like following. But we exchange eye contact as he passes by, and he goes, "Can't wait, can't wait, can't wait." And that was the first experience we caught him on camera. It was really cool because we hadn't said a word, nothing, but he knew who I was, and there was just the moment he was just like, he's like, "Okay, we're going this, we're good." Can't wait.
Very cool.
And then the next day in the green room, like we had to like prep what we were gonna do and stuff, and we got to know each other and took pictures.
And like this, there's a football stadium rented out for him. It's
Where
it's
was
called
VCon?
at Viking Stadium, was
Minneapolis.
US Bank
Oh,
Stadium,
Minneapolis,
where the
wow.
Vikings play.
Yeah.
So it's like he is like truly the center. He is the center of the universe in that place.
Wait, he filled up.
No, he didn't fill
No,
it.
not filled up. They just rented it as
It was like a convention
But there were thousands
center.
of people.
Yeah.
It
Hundreds
was like
of people?
10,000, I think.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's a
yeah.
lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, 10,000
I think
maybe.
that's what they announced. I don't
Right.
think they quite got there.
He's
And
the
I-
center of the universe, and I'm his moon.
And now
Yeah,
that
no, for
now that
real.
Gary Vee, now
You're
that this
freaking
Gary Vee-
creep.
you've met Gary Vee through this impersonation. Can you just identify people you want to meet and be like, I should start doing a Clooney?
Yeah,
And
I
then
think
event-
Jordan Peterson's my next victim. As far as I think I'll open one of his tours. We'll see. Manifesting it now. Ha ha. Well, it's like we'll see. I manifested into the world.
It's the best one.
because you can probably
Peterson's best.
you probably start doing impersonations of someone eventually because the quality of your impressions, it will get to that person, and if they're tickled by it,
Yeah, it's happening. There's other new developments coming of some other people, but I can't talk about it yet because it's not real yet. But we'll see.
Do you know the Denzel guy who does Denzel exclusively?
Yes,
He is awesome.
we're in
You
touch.
You
on
think he's
Instagram.
ever met Denzel?
I mean, the guy who's just like, okay, on TikTok.
Yeah. He's like a big dude
Yeah,
with the
yeah.
braids. Yeah.
Yeah.
Has
He's
he
just
met
like-
Denzel?
I don't know if he's met Denzel. Maybe I think he's maybe posted a picture or something. These guys seek them out sometimes, but I do know him. We're in like a group on Instagram of Instagram impressions.
That's so funny.
Last question about Gary Vee. Serious question.
He's
For
the best
both-
impressionist of Denzel. I've
for
ever
both
seen.
of you.
Okay.
Because Gary Vee's giving people all this advice, which I imagine a lot of them are incorporating, whether it's advice he gave you or just things you've gleaned from watching his talks, have you guys integrated any of Gary Vee's beliefs or practices into what you're doing here?
Yeah, I'm definitely more skeptical of that whole thing. I'm less into it than Ami is, but yes, for sure. The
fact that we post consistently.
Yeah, the consistency is the whole thing, and like sort
That's
of
one of
like-
his things, just be out there.
His whole thing is stop complaining and do this. Try shit over and over again and see what sticks and see what
Yeah.
works and be consistent. Granted, there's stuff to make fun of, which I do, where it's like his answers are very simplistic sometimes, but sometimes the simple answer is the true one. It's just the hardest one for people to. But what do I do? And the answer is like there's no clear path. It's a windy path. You know this. You have to try things. And you have to be proactive, and that's basically what he's saying. And sometimes he minimize like someone will. You could joke about it, like, yeah, but Gary, I don't have any internet. That's okay. Write letters. It's like what? You can make jokes about it, but at the end of the day. The answer is the answer you don't want to hear.
Right. Yeah.
Put in the hard work.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Like how do you make a great podcast? Make 1,000 episodes, and by the 1,000th, it'll probably be a lot better than it was at the first one.
Well, what's nice about what you guys have, which isn't true about everyone, is you have this great studio and you have things set up in such a way that you can plug people in and churn out work. A lot of times you'll see people put a lot of time and energy into something, do one, and then you're like, where's the second? It's been a while.
Yes.
Because it's tough to replicate.
Well, doing it with a partner, for me at least, is huge because
accountability.
Accountability is really big.
Accountability, that's also very
working
fucking
with
Gary.
someone who takes it seriously. Like,
yeah, Michael tried to bow out like so many.
No, I know. But I probably.
Michael's like, I just love the coffee.
Also to disrupt your bit, everyone has a pattern of how they do things and then not do things. So you disrupt that by working with someone else. It's like, on a day that maybe we don't want to do an episode or something, one person will say, nah, we should because whatever. And we were very committed, especially to doing like the first 20, no matter what else was going on. Put in the first, because the second you push one off, when we tried this the first time, we tried to do one episode, then we pushed off the second one. We'll do it the next week. And I'm like, Michael, I'm just telling you right now, we're going to push off the second episode. The podcast is not going to happen. Yeah, and it didn't. Right. It had to, and I wasn't living in New Jersey yet, but like, we knew, and we both knew. We're like, nah, but let's try to not let that happen. Yeah. But it's like, the how many things you have to do something a certain amount of times before it becomes habit. Yeah. So we were very committed to it becoming habit. So now we can reschedule an episode or whatever, and it still feels like easier to get back on.
It's habit.
And our friends and family, they hold us accountable too, because they're like, we know you're doing this thing. Like, you can't just stop now. Like,
right.
We're going to ask you about it.
Got to give the people what they want.
Yeah.
But it's good to have the person you're working with to either challenge or validate what you're doing.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult to get out of when you're immersed in something, to have that objectivity where you're like, this structure of this doesn't make sense, or what if you did it a different way? It wouldn't come to you.
Listen, when you pick up a guitar for your first few lessons, it is physically painful to do. Like any new venture, like the beginnings of something, the first few episodes, the first few tries, like hurts in so many ways. You know it's not going to be your best work. You have to start by not being very good at all at something. That's a Jordan Peterson line. I can't. In order to... You have to start by not being very good at all. It's very unpleasant. But that is true. Like you see the guitar.
By the way, you got to manipulate your heels here with that Jordan Peterson.
You see somebody playing. You're like, I want that.
Yeah.
Then you pick it up. Holy shit! I don't even know what I don't know, and it physically hurts to make this chord.
Yeah.
I'll never be able to do it, and that's a long time to get to push through of unpleasantness to get back to when it feels like actually satisfying. So it's the same with everything. The first podcast is gonna make you cringe, and then the second one slightly less and slightly less and slightly less.
Right.
Like the first workout is hard. The 30th not as hard.
And the workflow, like it used to take us hours to set up and hours to cut the reels and the TikToks and everything. And it's like I could do. It used to take me like 2.5 hours to do a reel. I could do it in like half an hour now if I need to.
The automation. It's like you're doing all these things you don't even realize. And I knew that only really because I had done a lot of Instagramming and TikToking beforehand. I don't know if it would have made it through that threshold if I didn't have the foresight, because I was like, trust me, I know how, like the headache, I know how this feels. Like where to put, it's like this is also on the heels of that, of having done that. So I was able to here's what we set up. Here's where I've learned from those mistakes.
Yeah. Mostly the best part of all of it is I'm learning about this new world of like the Tim Dillon, Andrew Salt's like new media thing. Like
creator economy.
Like most people now think of a podcast as a clip on TikTok. They're like, do you watch Rogan? Yeah, I watch Rogan. Like they don't. They just watch TikToks of Rogan. But like people think of our podcast as these minute-long clips that they watch on Instagram.
Wow.
Which is fine. That's like, you don't have to listen to the whole hour and a half if you don't want to. But
if you're 1 inch closer to the world of podcasts, there's a whole wealth of full episodes. It's just that the way to market your podcast is to make smaller versions of your podcast.
No, yes, but that is also the whole entire thing to somebody. It doesn't just need to be a marketing tool. Like we create reels. That's what we do.
Yeah, but like the Patreon, the creator economy is held up by full form podcasts. A lot of them.
Yeah.
That, you know what I mean? Those are still the hub. You're not like, forming a Patreon so people can watch little short clips of you. I mean, you have this umbrella.
The clips are like your commercials
and
for.
that's what you put out into the world.
Fair
These are
enough,
samplers before people get on board. Like, here are the free tasters of what we're about.
But I've learned a lot about this whole new ecosystem, which is exciting and cool.
Yeah, the creator economy.
And I could apply it to other stuff.
The creator
I think we have a part-2 podcast.
Yeah.
I'm not even joking. This was like 40 minutes.
We have content. By the way, a word that I loathe.
Content?
Ugh,
Yeah.
sends
You
a
should listen to
chill
our
up.
podcast. I think you'd like
I
it.
love content. Just imagine, this reminded me when you guys were putting your fingers together. I was like, imagine if, Michelangelo painted the Sistine Chapel and he shows them and they're like, Mike, this is good content. It just, imagine if like Beethoven like composes Fur Elise and it's like, this is really good content. It's just so gross to
That's
me.
good
But
stand-up. What
do you know what I
just
mean?
said about Michelangelo's content is good content.
it's just content because it just, I understand when people say they're consuming content, it makes it feel like, I don't know, cars in search of fuel or something, or just it's
That is
so.
what it is. It's an addiction.
There's the
But
art is completely wrung
It's
out
just
of it.
language. I mean, it is just
It
language.
is just language, totally, and I use it
People
all
don't
the
want to call themselves
time.
artists because it's cringy. So
But
they say I'm
it's-
a content creator.
Yeah. Oh God.
That's
but
a whole,
Video
that's a whole
creator.
That's a whole
other
other
What about the
discipline.
word creator?
Creator, I think too much of like Adam Newman on stage at a WeWork conference. I just, the word create. I like,
Michael's language now.
but it's just devoid of all the.
What does one call
Artistry.
themselves? Podcast? What would you? I'm just curious with the semantics. Like, what's the more palatable jargon? Descriptors of this.
What to what
space?
you do? Oh yeah,
To-
we
to
have a
this, to
podcast,
all
or
of
we
this.
create. We do interviews. We have a podcast. I understand why content is a
Content producers.
Well, the issue he's taking issue with the word content.
Do you know what I don't like about the word content? It evokes commerce, which is not why most people get into the arts.
Yeah, I don't think it's art.
But show business is a show and a business. And
Totally.
if you don't know the business, then no one's going to see the show.
100%.
I'm quoting Larry the Cable
But it's
Guy.
when the artists start using words like content. Let the people on the executive side. This is just a pet peeve of mine.
I know.
But
but there is a pet peeve of like, ew, business.
Like,
and
actually,
arts.
one
We
of
have
the
to
craziest
separate-
things-
Art is pure. Business is business.
no,
Okay.
not at all. The business side of all this stuff is
But
fascinating.
the commerce you don't like.
But like I remember after we had Martin Short on the show, we were in the green room, and he is known as
favorite.
one of the greatest talk show guests ever. And I mean, not to pump him up too much, but like if you say who are some of the best late night guests, it's always Martin Short. He comes out and like Don Rickles, he'll make fun of the host and he'll talk about the band and he'll have jokes about something really topical, and then he's just a great
Jiminy Glick is the
Yeah,
best. Is the best host.
Oh, he's
Yeah,
great.
Tell me something. It seems like you're being a bit of a bloke.
That's perfect. Yeah.
So, Neil, you started with Charlie Rhodes.
That's a
He had a great line on Conan. He went, Conan, you just invited me over to your house, and I wasn't surprised at how large it was. It was how large it was relative to your talent.
Right. That was Jiminy Glick.
No, that was Martin Short.
Oh.
But he's
I think-
so
Ladies and gentlemen,
funny.
from the 90s, Jerry Seinfeld.
Let me ask
well,
you a
the
question.
Mel Brooks, his line to Mel Brooks. He's like, "So what's your big beef with the Nazis?" But
That was
went,
Jim. He's 80 years old.
and apparently he went to Steve Martin's house the first time he met him, and Steve Martin's got some massive house with all these works of art, and Martin Short goes, "How are you this successful? Because I've seen your movies." Like that, like
Can you believe he's 80 years old?
it's crazy. He's one of the
Is he
coolest,
really?
best.
80 years old.
Anyway, but he comes to the show, and afterwards he's like, we were talking about something, and he goes, "Why do we do this, Neil? This whole thing, this late night. Why do we do this? Why do we
Neil?"
do it?" And I was like, it was like when a professor asks you a question and you're sort of frozen, like, I have some ideas, but I don't want to make a fool of myself. And he's like, we do it because it's art. And I always thought, an amazing thing to say. And if I ever wrote a book about late night, it would probably be like, we do it because it's art. And so when people talk about it's really good content, it's just like,
I understand.
but I use that word all the time anyway.
Because it's art with Neil Goldman.
I
Why do we do
think,
it?
by
And
the
that's
way,
the best guest. See, and the difference
Because it's
between
art
a
with Neil Goldman.
podcast,
I can't
the difference
wait.
between a podcast and like a late night interview. I think of a late night segment as a work of art.
Mm-hmm.
It is this specific art form that what you do on a podcast wouldn't work for a late night interview, but ideally at its best, you get something funny, you get something like people, what would be like a
a
great
medium.
segment. Nathan Lane comes on the show, great performance. He does something funny and then he does something moving, and it's a little of both. He came on for Angels in America, and it was around the same time of I guess not too long before the Lion King live action movie was on. And so he reads this letter that he got from Billy Eichner, who was taking over the role of Timon in the live action, wrote him this email saying, like, it means so much to me, like following in your footsteps or whatever. And Nathan Lane, like, I'm picking up the role of Timon, which you did in the animated movie. I'm so honored. I hope not to let you down, whatever. And Nathan Lane reads this letter and he's like, how dare you? What's next? You and Ryan Gosling in the Birdcage? Like, I'd name another one of my successful films, but I don't have one.
Way to rub it in,
He was
Billy.
just like, thanks. You know, he's like, but I'm glad gay rights have come this far because now Pumbaa and Timon can go live a happy gay life in the Serengeti. Once you go warthog, you never go back.
He said this on the show?
On the show, and so the audience
that's
is
great.
loving it.
He's a
and
pro.
then he gets into the really serious stuff about like what is Angels in America about, and he talks about the necessity and inevitability of change and how you could either fight change, like some politicians are trying to do, or you could try to embrace change for the better, and difficult as it is, try to do that. And so to have both of those in the same late night hit, it's like, that's great. It's so rich. It's in a 12, 15-minute thing.
So maybe what you do is classical music and Rogan is punk, you know?
Possibly, yeah. But
A real composed piece.
I forgot how did we get here? Forget how.
Content. We're talking about content
content,
versus
yeah.
art, and because it's art, the name of your podcast, which I can't wait for. It's
This
gonna be
was
great
the first
content.
episode of it. You just interviewed us in the
We
second
do it.
half. This is your
Well, I
first
could-
episode.
First of all, it's obviously what I do, but I am genuinely curious. I said I would be remiss if I came here and did not ask Ami, what is this guy Gary V all about?
You learned who Tim Dillon was, Gary V, and
Yeah, I got a lot of good.
Andrew Schultz.
I got a lot of good tips. I got to spend a lot more time.
I can't
on
wait, Neil. I'm
tips
very
on-
excited. All you need is one of these. It's like $250.
I actually have one of these, an MV7.
An MV7.
Yeah.
It's USB. Plug right in.
How are my levels? How are my levels? This
Put
was
it
fun.
in with a little iPhone and say your first 20 minutes. Hot takes, because it's art with Neil Goldman.
I can't wait for it to totally bomb.
This was good content.